Saving the day. Saving the day.
Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, the highly anticipated sequel in the Ghostbusters series, mostly a sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife, since we have the Spangler family in tow, front and center, once again, which, love them. Everybody in the family, everybody outside of the family, the newcomers, the old schoolers, everybody together once again brings the chemistry, the comedy, it's a great ensemble in a Ghostbusters movie, and it's one that I hope carries forward into the future with more entries in the series.
Oh, absolutely. I think a big part of being in Ghostbusters is the fact that the characters have good chemistry, because when you see the original, they had great chemistry and the story kind of just flow with them. And I feel like the same thing does happen with our characters here, that they do mesh very well with the old and new together in this new story.
And I will say that the character interactions as well does feel very organic. It feels earned for pairing up of certain characters, and then they switch out and you've got new pairings of certain characters proceeding through the movie, different locations, trying to figure out how to stop the big bad that is on the horizon. I will say though, Phoebe's arc, Phoebe's story in this one, even though in the first or in Afterlife, much more heartfelt, and I loved Phoebe's, journey in Afterlife. This one, not so much. I feel like they really didn't have much for Phoebe to do, so they kind of threw her something, and to me, I'm still processing the choices made with her journey, but all in all, I gotta say, her and podcasts not really utilized as much or well compared to the others, but I still love Phoebe. I still love McKenna Grace, and I'm excited for her future, as well as everybody else's in the Ghostbusters series.
Yeah, I think that she was kind of the catalyst as to the, I guess, the anchor of what they needed for the whole story to happen, but she still did feel very underutilized because she's the Spangler. She is kind of like Egon, and I don't feel like they used that portion of her like they did in the first movie versus here in this movie, which was really shocking to me, because there were certain things where I was just like, well, you have like the setup for it. Why didn't you put her in that setup that they had? But they didn't. They went a different way with her. And like you said, it's more of a kind of a process. Like, okay, I can see why I guess you decided to go this way. But in my mind, I would have probably preferred to go a different route. But in the end, it did give us to where the conflict is.
Yeah, I mean, there were MacGuffins galore when it comes to certain aspects of the story and how it would proceed. Yeah. Garaka, a badass. It's scary. I wish they would have utilized Garaka more. But again, I feel like you're always going to get that when it comes to a Ghostbusters villain. You want more of the big bad. You want to see more of the day in the life of this god. But you're not going to get that here. It does feel like a smaller story, even though in the trailer, which by the way, a lot of scenes in the trailer don't make it into this movie, or at least portions of it seem like they were cut before you got to what was in the trailer. But it seems like it's a big story, but really it does feel rather small, which I'm okay with. Makes it more intimate. It is a big scale. We're always trying to save the world, but this one for some reason felt like it was on a smaller budget, even though the Firehouse set, Hook and Ladder 8, I mean, it is beautiful. I love that we get to be in this building for as long as we get in this movie.
Right.
And I completely understand why the production was called Firehouse before they ended up picking Frozen Empire.
That's very true, because the Firehouse itself is now I would like to say it has stepped up to being like a main character versus a reoccurring character in the story, and it feels more lived in, which I really enjoy that, because they live in the Firehouse. That's where headquarters used to be and was, but now the Spangler family lives there, and that portion of it was really fun. I feel like they did balance very well the different, like the new versus the old, or versus the OG. I didn't feel like one of them was shoehorned in versus another one in there, because a lot of times you feel like that does happen. They're like, oh well, they're just there just to be in this moment, but no, I feel like the way that they incorporated them was really good.
And that can go for Easter eggs as well, because there are plenty of Easter eggs in this movie, but they don't really feel like they're in your face forced. Like, a lot of them are just things kind of going on in the background, and it makes sense why they'd be going on in the background.
Yeah.
So you're picking up little things, musical cues as well. I will say we did lose Rob Simonson as the composer for this movie, but we did end up gaining a pretty experienced composer,
Academy Award winning composer.
Oh, dang, I didn't even realize that. But with Dario Marianelli joining the crew, I was concerned. I was very much going to be listening to the soundtrack and the score of this movie, and I was hoping they wouldn't go a completely different way with it. But it's the guy who did Paddington. It's the guy who did V for Vendetta. The guy who did Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
But we've got...
I was more curious because I love the score to Pride and Prejudice and V for Vendetta. So, and he won for Atonement, and that was a very good, like, as atmospheric type music for that movie as well. So I was curious to see what he would do for Ghostbusters, because it has a very distinct sound to it, or music to it. But yeah, I think he did pretty well.
He did not disappoint. There are musical cues. There are almost note for note aspects from the original Ghostbusters movie. However, they're not the ones that you would think. They are from certain parts of the first movie, but I felt that weren't really utilized as much in Afterlife, where Afterlife used a whole bunch of themes from the original, but made them more epic and cinematic, which I love what Rob Simonson did. But this one felt like he was trying to take the score and make it his own while sounding like Elmer Bernstein's original score. So he still kept it in the theme, but yet gave us something new. The only criticism I would have is there were some beautiful new music and scoring for the Spangler family, for Phoebe in Afterlife, that I absolutely loved. And even on the way to go watch the movie, I was saying, I hope Phoebe's theme is there, because it's a beautiful theme. It wasn't Elmer Bernstein's, it was Simonson's, but that theme is nowhere to be found in this movie. So that's my criticism of that. However, I did enjoy the other ones. The musical cues that showed up were very familiar, and it felt like we were going on a new journey in the Ghostbusters universe, just with somebody scoring something that did have their own feel, but had the touch of Elmer Bernstein's original OG scoring for the first Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I think right off the bat, the movie itself started very well. Where we were kind of right in the middle of it, and you're like, okay, they've been doing this for a moment, and then it slows down, and there are parts where I'm just like, and it, like I said before, it had to do with what was going on with Phoebe and the way that they went with it. But then the last half of the movie is where it really picks up, and then Camille Nanjiani, I think he was a wonderful addition to this movie, to like the Ghostbusters thing, because I feel like he just fit in, especially with his like comedic moments that he has. It worked. It worked.
We saw it in a sold out theater. It was completely full to the brim. Yeah. The applauses were coming for Paul Rudd's moments, Kumail Nanjiani's moments. They had the biggest pops while we were watching it. It's funny. There's a lot of funny moments, and it's a lot of Paul Rudd funny moments.
Yeah,
so if you don't really care
Paul
for Paul Rudd comedy or Kumail Nanjiani comedy,
then you're probably not gonna.
Sure, Patton Oswalt still funny, but he wasn't Patton Oswalt in the sense of like what we know from Patton Oswalt. He was kind of subdued, but nonetheless, I want all of them. I want them to carry forward into the next film. If we do get a next film, they better do a next film. And the tech, the history, the science, all the paranormal information.
Yeah, that stuff was very intriguing, where I want more of that. And yeah, like I wish we did get more of that.
And Dan Aykroyd showed up. Like Dan Aykroyd was Ray, but he wasn't just Ray. It was like what we know Dan Aykroyd to have become. Like they've become one.
Yeah.
Now we've become one.
You can really tell like how excited he was to be in those moments.
Yep.
As a Ghostbuster, but as like a somebody who's very interested in the paranormal stuff on the outside of acting and whatnot. So you could tell that he was like, yeah, I could do this.
New York City. I love that New York City is back. If you saw the trailer, you know a certain antagonist is back, but I thought that person was utilized well. I like the interactions. Again, certain aspects that are in the trailer aren't in the movie.
I wish there was more of him. I felt like they didn't put him a lot in it.
I feel like this is step one. But I feel like we could have more.
I get it. That's true. Yeah, this is like a slow burn for him. But
I hope.
We'll see.
It's very possible we'll never see those antagonists again. But
right. I'm really curious to see how those who aren't like super heavy into Ghostbusters and are just very like the casual fan of Ghostbusters or just casual fans of movies in general, where they're like, oh, let's just go see a movie this weekend, how they see this movie when it comes out, because I'm curious.
I am very curious. I do feel like there's going to be aspects of it that are divided.
Right.
I love the Ghostbusters in action. That's what I would want to watch it again for.
Right.
Like you said, there are aspects of the story that I'm kind of like, I'm not too interested in revisiting.
As soon as it popped up, I was like, oh.
It's just, I mean, I don't even want to compare it to what I want to compare it to. Maybe we'll do a spoiler review to talk about that. But yeah, like there's you'll know it when you see it, a certain aspect of the story. It's just, it feels out of place for Ghostbusters, just aesthetically, visually,
to the point where it's like, where are they going with this?
Yeah, and it's I don't know. It's a choice for sure. But either way, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Did you watch it at one of the screenings? If you did, let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, because a lot of the people in our screening were part of the the local Arizona Ghostbusters or Phoenix Ghostbusters. Yeah. So they were very heavily rooting for the Ghostbusters.
And they did end up having this press screening and fan screening a day, 2 days before it ends up releasing. Yeah. We're allowed to release the review a day before. So typically when they hold on to something like that, I don't know, it feels like they don't want the word of mouth to get out too quickly. And
I know, but it's also Sony, and maybe Sony is very hesitant right now because of Madam Web.
It's true. Yeah, they could be very hesitant right now because of that. I will say that this movie did have an incredible moment that I never knew I always wanted until I got it. And if you're a fan of Stephen King, you'll probably think of that when you watch it. But it was an awesome moment, and I'm very happy that they put it in there, just, on a horror side of things. I know people are going to ask us the ranking. So for me, it's 1, 2, this one, Afterlife, and that's it. So
I would do that too. I would say 1, 2, this one, Afterlife, and then And
I really liked Afterlife.
And maybe the real Ghostbusters are in there somewhere, but
Afterlife had way more retreading and way more repeating of Ghostbuster stuff than this one. This one did feel very original in how they were approaching it. More real Ghostbusters love. It felt like Spirits Unleashed love. Like they had things from other Ghostbusters properties, not just Easter eggs. I just mean the feel and some of the, let's say, paranormal mechanics of how things work in those worlds in this one. And for that, I love it.
Yeah, I would say this is a solid, good fun at the movie theater.
For sure. So if you're a Ghostbusters fan, definitely check it out. Again, this is just our opinion of it and what we saw. I'll be listening to the score. I will definitely watch the movie again. But are you excited? Tell us down there. You can also like and subscribe.
And did the thing on our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Discord.
All those social networking gin joints, you know where they are. Kick into the party, fuel the party, keep the party going on our Patreon. A lot coming out this week. A whole bunch of shows. X-Men 97, The Bad Batch. We're going to be pretty
Invincible.
busy. Oh, no.
Cartoon after cartoon after
I know,
cartoon.
right? They're all
animation after animation after animation. But they're great.
Thank you guys so much. And as always,
now it's time to say goodbye.
This party is over.
Bye.
Bye.